Hello and welcome. I'm going to start live streaming in just a second here, but I'm glad that you can join me. Boom, boom, boom. We're going live. All right, we are live. Hello and welcome to my first Facebook live streaming event. I am very excited to try something new tonight. So, boom, boom, boom. This is me. Live. All right. I have made sure to mute myself. I'm doing this dual screen thing so that I can make sure that you can see me and I can see when you comment. And if you have questions, you can interact with me. I've got a couple different interactive moments throughout this, so you'll be able to follow me and talk with me and make decisions as we go. It'll sort of be a choose your own painting adventure experience tonight. I am dressed for the occasion because this is sort of like a bunny suit, sort of onesie, and I have pig socks, So I'm sort of like pajama chimera tonight because it's Tuesday, and that's what happens. If you've never met me in real life, which is possible, I wanted to tell you a little bit about myself. I am somebody who does a lot of things. I am an artist, I'm a teacher, I am a baker, I'm a painter, I'm a mycologist. I love studying mushrooms and going out into nature and taking pictures of all kinds of flowers and plants and interesting things. I also have a face and body painting company, and I have done work in the user experience realm, and I've worked in research in higher ed. So there's all kinds of interesting things that I have done, and I appreciate the comment, Danielle, of being super smart. I like learning. That's the thing, is I just love taking in new information. So part of why I'm doing this experience is that I'm able to share my passion for learning and share my passion for art. Art's been an important part of my world since I was a kid. I almost went into musical theater rather than into art, but random high school teacher who changed my mind, and here I am. So I wanted you to just get an introduction to me so that you can have some stage for what I'm going to talk about. Tonight, I have an agenda. I am going to talk about some of the positivity that we should all be sharing and creativity to really get us feeling the good vibes with each other. I know that this is hard being so distant from each other, and that this is a chance for us to connect and to talk about creativity, talk about art, talk about inspiration, talking about the things that like make us feel connected. So if you want now in the comments, share something that's been making you feel inspired, or if you've been making art, or if you've been feeling really, like something's just really making you feel good, something positive. Share that now. Let's spread some positivity with each other. For me, this morning, I spent 2 hours in the woods taking pictures of plants. I saw an owl, I saw a white-tailed deer, and I got really, really close, like this close, to a sleeping anhinga, which was very cool. So I have a ton of pictures now to work from for that. And then the second thing I'll talk about is this thing I did over the weekend, which was, instead of working on the painting that I was working on, I decided to give myself a challenge, something new, something I'd never done before. And I'm going to show you the rules that I set up for myself, the constraints, and how I use those constraints to actually get myself to be more creative. And that was really something that I wanted to find a way to push myself to be able to experience something different. So I'll talk about the science behind novelty as well and why that's good for our brain. And then I want to talk about the painting that I've been working on, the arrangement, which anybody who's been joining has seen a few iterations of that. And then I'll have a moment where I'm going to ask you to choose. What do you want me to work on? So you'll get an interactive moment. And then I will be working on a painting, talking about storytelling and emotions. Tonight it's really going to be about how do we convey emotions using 2D elements, and what does it look like to try to paint a story when you're sort of reverse engineering this through colors and shape and line and texture, and what does that mean, and how do you make those decisions? So I'll be walking through those steps with you. And then at the very end, I'm just going to ask, what do you want to learn next? This is a new process for me. I've tried to really create some organization and objectives around this. I'm a learning scientist, so I can't really help myself but to make lists and have agendas and objectives and ask if I'm meeting my goals because, yeah, I'm a nerd. Yay, nerds! So here we go. If you have any questions about the agenda tonight, let me know. I'm going to go ahead and let's see if I can get this in the right spot. I love seeing all the exciting things that people are doing. People are singing and dancing and cooking, and oh, fantastic. I love it. So this weekend, I wanted to do something different. So I'm going to show you a slideshow of what I did. I didn't want to paint on my arrangement painting, but I wanted to be able to give myself something to work on that was interesting and challenged me in a new way. And sometimes that can happen with picking up a new medium, like I played with clay a few weeks ago. Sometimes that can be just a new constraint or a new approach to something. So what I did for this was, when I save my painting, I always put the saran wrap on my paint. And the saran wrap picks up a whole lot of paint, and I was like, that is a big waste, and I don't feel like I want to waste all that paint. So I took that paint and smushed it on some canvases, and then gave myself a challenge. I would use only one brush, I would not clean that brush, and I would see what I could come up with only the paint that I'd smeared on that canvas using the backside of my palette that I peeled off the saran wrap. I spent 45 minutes, gave myself a timer for that one session, and I did these two paintings. I didn't have an objective in mind. I didn't know what it was going to look like. I had no idea where I was going to end up, and it was a really interesting experiment. So after those 45 minutes, I sat back and I thought, okay, I've got one that sort of looks like a hummingbird mountain thing going on. All right, I'm going to take this off. I'm getting hot. Whew. And then I've got one that's kind of got characters that look like they're made of plants or bugs. And they're both really interesting. So I was trying to figure out, well, what can I do next? So I went ahead and made myself a second challenge. And in the second challenge, I decided to use some of the similar constraints. I would only use one brush, smaller brush this time. I would allow myself to use some water when I needed it, but I would also use only one color. So for one painting, I used a dark color, purple, and used it to just indicate the next layer of things. And then on the other painting, I used a light color to just indicate, the next layer. Again, this was a really interesting challenge to use these constraints to do something different. I'd never done any of this before. The whole time I was doing these paintings, I would stop and be like, what am I doing? This is so weird and silly. And it was really, really interesting to do something I'd never done before. And I had no idea where these were going. I didn't have any plans in mind. And inevitably, I came up with 2 paintings that I'm really excited about where they're going. They feel very stream of consciousness. One of them, the one on the left, ended up being this sort of council of characters in a log with mushrooms, and one main guy who's got this big headdress, and it's got this sort of like, I don't know, like serious feeling to it. And then the other one is this hummingbird-like creature that's transforming, and there's this tail and a cave, and 2 people are watching this transformation. So overall, I was very excited to do this because it tickled my brain in new ways. And one of the things that I think is important that we should talk about right now is that a lot of us are stuck at home, seeing the same things every day, seeing the same environment. We're not getting out. We're not getting new input. If you guys are friends of Short Circuit, like, need data, need input, you need new things in your brain to be able to have that aspect of challenging your brain to think about new things. So one of the things I want to challenge you to do is to find some way to push yourself to find novelty in your days, in your week, however you can, whether it's a new constraint, a new rule, a new approach, a new technique, doing something that really challenges yourself, and share with the group. Tell us what you're doing so that you can find new things to put in your brain. And there's a really good reason for this. The more new experiences that you add in, new images and ideas and content and learning and things that you are just having that in your body, in your brain, it overlaps with the learning you already have, and those memories become stronger. So you're actually increasing the learning of other things because you're making connections, and you'll be off, playing with clay, going, this is so weird, I've never done this before. But you know what? There's something about making this form that could improve when I'm painting with painting art. And so there's ways for these things to affect each other. This is basically a network of learning, and you want to keep overlapping those new experiences in your brain. So novelty is really, really important. So next thing on our agenda. So the weekend was really fun. I didn't paint on the arrangement, but I wanted to show you where that progress was. There's a little thing at the bottom here. I am collecting donations. If you find that I teach you something that's useful and interesting, or you just have a giant heart and you want to send me some money, I am not working right now. I'm looking for jobs. I'm really excited because I've got an interview Thursday, but I am very, very grateful for anything that you can send me, because it's helping me make these things and feel good about this. But it's definitely not necessary. It's just like you make me feel love, but you can make me feel love in all kinds of ways. Part of making me feel love is letting me know that you're inspired in making art. So I appreciate that so much. So let's talk about where these paintings are. The painting that I started, the first class, this is class number 4, was called The Arrangement. And at the time, I didn't really know what that painting was about. I had a lot of curiosity about it, and it became a conversation where I was looking at the painting and asking, why am I making this? What are these forms about? And it became an idea of that this was a conversation about how someone could take pain, and I represented pain in this idea of tears, and someone could take those tears and make something productive out of it. So the story that I'm telling in this painting is about a person who's taking pain, or an object that's taking pain, and it's moving through this process. These leaves are gathering it and pushing it up, and they're going into these containers, and those containers are blooming into flowers, and then the cycle starts all over again. And so I wanted to show movement, and I was really interested in different types of light in this painting. And so I made some good progress, but I haven't worked on it since the last class. And I'm open to working on this one tonight, but I'm also open to other ideas. So this is where we get to play a little game. Let's see. I'm going to see if I can publish this poll. Let's see if this works. What would you like to see me paint tonight? I can keep working on one of those challenge paintings. So I have this painting that I can work on, or this painting. These are the challenge paintings. I could work on the arrangement, or I could start something new. I've got a sketch that I've been thinking about doing. Let's see if I can bring the sketch out. Small sketch, just a little idea that I could work on as well. Looks like, I don't know if that's working, but it might be. So vote on the poll and let me see what you are thinking we should do tonight. I'll give you a few minutes. Start something new. That's 50%. All right. Oh, newness feels good, right? After all that talk about novelty. It is an interesting thing how our brains seek that. The hummingbird dragon looks amazing. Oh, thank you. I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm so curious about it. It's interesting to feel curious about your own work. I really have these experiences where I'm just not sure what I'm doing, and I love it, and it's super fun. All right, we are getting a lot of votes for start something new. I'm not seeing a poll, but I love the green one. Oh, okay. That's a challenge painting. Let's see. Can I show the results? Let's see if that works. All right, so it looks like so far I have most people voting for start something new. And I will probably get to a certain point in it tonight. And then next week I will jump into the challenge one. So if things didn't go your way for the choose your own art adventure painting tonight, tune in next week for more adventure time. All right, so now the way I want to work this is I'm gonna get this little sketch I made. I've been bringing up these like teardrop elements, pearl tears in a lot of things, and it's been resurfacing in my paintings. I think because I've been really emotional lately and trying to process using art. So what I want to talk about now, as far as like the actual learning that we're going to cover tonight, because I want to make sure that there's actual good solid content. Last week there was a request to talk about story and emotions and how we create those things using two-dimensional elements. And the idea is, you know, you've got this flat surface and you want someone to feel something. You want someone to feel whatever the emotion is. It's about giving them a reason to keep looking, right? Giving them a reason to view your work and to have something interesting in it. So for me, I'm always thinking about the idea of storytelling and creating work that's going to make people feel something. So what I've done tonight is just thought through some basic elements of what I make sure that I'm involving when I'm creating a painting. And I can actually use the challenge paintings as a good example before I start the new one. And then I'm going to use the new painting as I paint through it to give you an example of these things in progress, in an application of showing you what that actually looks like in the decision making. But my big goal here is to always make sure that I'm illuminating the paths of how you can make intentional decisions, that it's not just magic. It's not just I close my eyes and I paint and it's beautiful, angels sing, that it's actually thinking strategically and knowing that there are techniques in place that you can use to make a powerful painting. So when you think about story, and this is not as complicated as even Disney, this is more like children's, first reader books. There's always a location. There's a place where this story is happening. It could be on a different planet. It could be in the bottom of the ocean. It could be in some fictitious fantasy world that doesn't exist. All that matters is you have to ground your story in a place so that you can make all the rest of the decisions about what are the colors in that place? What are the objects? What's growing in that place? What would it smell like? All those things matter. So you want to think about location first. The second thing you want to think about is who are or what are the characters or actors in this story. Now, I don't paint a lot of character work. I don't do a lot of illustrative. I don't do a lot of people. But I do make sure that when I'm painting a flower, it has a character. It is the character. I want it to tell the story about something, and it's the actor. It's the one that the processes and the actions are happening to. And so that's the third part of this, is when you're thinking about this story element applied to painting, are you thinking about what's happening? What are you actually showing as the events or the actions that are happening in this painting? Is it that it's a moment in time? Is it a split second where someone's been kissed, or an explosion, or the feeling of opening a birthday present? These things are going to be translated into how you create movement and depth is in the events and actions. So these are just starter ideas for when you're thinking through your painting of what do you want to make. Now, you notice that I have lots of lists here, but that's because I'm a crazy type A nerd and I love lists. But here are some questions to ask yourself when you're working on designing your painting for an emotional experience. You want to think about, what kind of story do you want to tell? And you'll notice that I don't always know what kind of story I want to tell when I start. I iterate on it. I let it teach me. I have a conversation with it. I allow it to kind of come in and flow and show me new ideas. And then I want to think about if I'm telling a dark story, an evil story, a sad story, that's going to affect the colors I choose. That's going to affect the different types of shapes I use. So I want to make these decisions ahead of time. And I write this stuff all down. I keep lists upon lists. My sketchbook is a lot of words and some images, but I write a lot. The second thing you want to think about is, how do you want the viewer to feel when they see your work? This is basically user experience design, where you're thinking about the person on the other end of whatever the experience is, and trying to be empathetic to how they might take in that experience. So for me, I want someone to look at certain paintings and be in awe, or I want them to feel love. I want them to feel safe or secure. I might want them to feel a little concerned. There's different emotions that I would want to create. And those decisions that I make when I think about how I want that viewer to feel, what emotion do I want them to feel, that helps me make better decisions, helps me make more powerful art. And then that last part of this is where those decisions come together. What 2D elements are actually going to help convey that emotion, to elicit that emotion? So when you say, I want to make a painting that makes people feel disgusted, well, what would you do? Would you go with something that's got a nice, clean, smooth, sharp lines? It's probably very light and bright. Or would you go with something that's maybe so gunked up with texture, heavy, falling off the canvas, and slimy, and everything's like organic plus sharp, angular, dangerous things, and you're not really wanting to get close to it, but you are really intrigued, like looking at an accident on the side of the road? You would make those decisions based on the type of emotion you would pick. So as far as a path to this, you can make a list, the forms, the colors, the shapes, your ideas. I love going through poetry and going, this phrase makes me feel something, and I'll write it down, and I'll write down the emotions that I'm feeling so that when I come back, I can pull those things in. I collect reference images. For this painting, after I was working on it, actually, I'll switch back real quick. When I was working on this painting, after I finished it, I thought, oh, since there is a hummingbird and there's this sort of animal and twisty braid things and a weird like alligator tail, I really should go collect a whole bunch of imagery for that so that when I come back to this painting, I have ideas about what I want to do. So I'm going to jump back to the question to ask yourself. Collect imagery, collect ideas, and look at art. This is really important. If you are isolating yourself in the world of only seeing your art, never looking at other artists' work, never experiencing those different ways that people approach art, it's very hard for you to be inspired. And this goes back to that same idea of why I challenged myself this weekend, is that I needed to feel that fire again. I needed to feel something different so that it made me have a new way to think about it. It gave me new constraints, and constraints are not bad things. They are good things for us as artists to make us be more creative. So look at art, make sure that you're taking in new things, sketch, experiment, iterate. This is iterative design where you're being able to take something and improve it, look at it and improve it, and finding new things that you can always come back to and say, I think that I could make this stronger if I do X. And I'll show you an example for that. In the painting that I was doing the arrangement, some of you saw me do this when I was Facebooking live. I had a flower that was actually originally over here, and I thought, it doesn't really convey the weight that I want in a painting. I want that flower to have more heft, more pull, more weight. And so I painted it out, made a new decision, and just indicated where I wanted that new flower to be. And so I'm always willing to iterate. I'm always willing to look at it differently and find a new way to look at those things. And you should find that openness in yourself. Trust yourself, because you're going to learn something in the process. And then the last thing that I want to emphasize in all of this is that you cannot fail. The only failure you can make is to not learn from a mistake. And growth mindset is hugely important to me in my everyday. And it's not just about art, it's about life. It's about accepting that we're humans and we're going to make mistakes, and we just have to go, you know what, that was interesting and I learned a lot, and move forward. So trust yourself. Don't worry about failure. You are going to fail, but only if you don't learn from it. So take some time to be compassionate with yourself, especially now in these crazy times. All right, so we have a vote for a new painting. And I'm going to put these down. This will be a fun experience. All right, so I've got a secondary camera that I am going to shift over to. Hopefully that the color is not too off. I know I'm a little green. Sorry about that. Green. So, all right. How's everybody doing so far? Are we having fun yet? All right. I want to make sure that you can see everything. And I'm going to go ahead, and the first step that I always want to do is, so in these sketches, I don't put a lot in them. They are really just an idea. So I've got this twisty thing that's open, and there's these tentacles that are sort of interacting with each other, and then there's this sense of a pearl object with little ones around it, and these things are reaching out and touching it, but like we just discussed, there's no location. There's no sense of action yet. I think that The action that I want to emphasize is going to be around where these things are touching and how they're interconnecting, and sort of, I see this as two characters combining together in some way. So I want to use that to influence my decisions when I'm working through this. Now this canvas, I did a bunch of these at one time where I just took a bunch of colors and made a surface to work on. I think this is going to be a really great surface because the feelings that I want to go for are joy and companionship and a sense of safety in that. So I'm really looking for how I can use these really beautiful colors to put this all together. So this is my small box of brushes. There's never enough brushes in the world. And so I gotta think about a setting. And I've been using a lot of underwater themes lately. And that feels good because water is something that makes me feel safe and comfortable. And maybe I'll be able to incorporate more of that aquatic sense into this. And in terms of the two-dimensional elements that I'm going to use to tell this story of companionship and safety and joy and partnership is I want these to be very flowing and organic. I'm not looking for a lot of hard edges. I'm not looking for a lot of angular shapes. I'm looking for something that's going to feel like it's got this natural sort of entwinement, if you will. So I'm just mixing up some color. I'm going to start with a sort of medium purpley lavender color to just get a sense of where I want things. And then I'll come back with other things in here. It's so interesting working on a square canvas. I normally work on rectangles, but so this is going to provide a new challenge. New challenges, woo, yeah! All right, so since we've got this so well framed, what's going to be better and more interesting? Here's where the decision making comes in. If I did this replicated just like this, what I've done in this sketch is this is right down the center line. And although it is interesting, it is not ideal because your eye goes right to that and goes right back. And it's not going to go all the way around. And that's not what we want. We want our eyes to kind of come in and flow through it. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm actually going to paint it at an angle where this side of things is going to come in this way. So let me move my tape. And these are the types of decisions you want to think through. Is how is someone going to look at this painting? What is that going to do for their eye when they come into it, so that you can keep their eye in the painting as long as possible? That's the goal. Keep people looking at the painting. Welcome, welcome, so many people. I'm so excited. All right, here we go. So we've got, I want this to be the most interesting. And I'm just moving like thick to thin by pressing and lifting. What's funny is I was in art school for years. I got a degree in painting and went on to do totally different things, make educational video games and research. But I learned so much when I became a face painter, because face painters really have to learn how to control their brush because their surfaces are humans, and it makes you a much better, more sensitive painter, even on canvases, when you are working with painting brushes. So I'm like fiddling with some of these shapes so that I can make them a little more interesting. And I'm definitely playing with thick and thin here because I want there to be dynamic movement. And when we talk about thick and thin, we are, camera, come on, come back. Boop, boop. Let's get you back in focus. I'll make little songs until you come back in focus. All right, we're good. So thick and thin means it's coming forward and going back. And we want that. We want that dynamic feel of movement by using thick and thin, big shapes, little shapes, vary it, create contrast. There's all types of ways to create contrast. This is just one of them. And you can see I'm just kind of like pressing and lifting. I saw that this edge is too straight. It needs to have more wavy stuff going on in there. So part of learning to paint with me includes complimentary silly songs. So let's see. Tonight's complimentary silly song is going to be about how much I love cake. I love cake, but I can't eat cake because I'm allergic to a lot of things. So here's my song. Cake, cake, cake. Cake is great. I love me some cake when I can bake it. And then I feed it to everybody else and I make them fat because I can't eat cake. Hey, my Nana joins. That's awesome. All right, hi Nana. I'll just making up songs and painting. So let's see. We want these things to move down here. Do you guys make up silly songs? I think the more we're stuck at home, the more random songs I keep making up. It's definitely happening a lot lately. Lots of silly songs. So I really hope that you guys can all find something that challenges you this week, something that brings novelty in your life, something that tickles your brain in a new way. It'll be a good experience, especially given, the circumstances right now where we're stuck at home, not seeing a lot of new stuff. We're not able to interact. We're not able to have new conversations and experiences the same way we're used to. And so we've got to find creative, inventive ways to challenge ourselves. And that's something I'm really passionate about, is finding ways to use creativity to actually improve our lives and improve our mental health. Because we are all artists, and I think everyone should make art because it's good for you. Oh, Daniela, I definitely change the lyrics to songs all the time. My sister and I have a very fond rendition of Lana Del Rey's song, which is Summertime Sadness, but we sing Summertime Sandwich. I sing a lot of songs about food. I like food. I eat. And I bake and I cook. It's been so weird cooking with canned food. I'm so not used to it. That's a tangent. But it's been good because it's been a challenge and I'm learning new things. So I'll take it. All right. I'm going to add a little more. Yeah. And I'm making new decisions as I'm painting this because I want to make it more interesting and more dynamic. It's that iterative design. I see new opportunities that I didn't see the first time when I made this drawing. And so now I want to think a little more strategically and go, okay, I can do some different things that I hadn't thought about doing when I was just sketching this. And a lot of that is because when you're working on a small piece versus a big piece, and even though these are not huge different sizes, but the different mediums definitely change how you relate to it and what you see in terms of like opportunities to improve. So I have this little leafy thing up there that's, I might come back to that. So we've got that guy moving this idea of this kind of like braid that's coming through. And right now, I'm not doing detail. This is like building a building. You've got to create the foundation first before you add any of those details. Whenever I see kids do this all the time, but adults do it too, they'll start to draw a face, and the first thing they'll do is they'll draw 2 eyes, and then they'll draw eyelashes. And it's like, but you don't even know where the rest of the face is. You can't do that. You have to think about it in terms of a foundation. And so you want to think about it in layers and being able to build on these layers. So the first thing that I'm doing is just building, where are my forms in this space? And how am I going to connect them and create them in a dynamic way? So big, small to big again. We're going to have some more dynamic contrast with shapes, making sure that we're keeping it interesting. And what I have changed is that this whole portion, these leafy things, are going to have to move because of the space. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave them in a way, let's see, that connects with these pieces. So I might actually have these weave back in so that you've got this interconnectedness between them. And I would really like to also have it come in front of this. So I'm going to just make that decision right there for myself, is that I want this to actually twist and turn over on top of this one. And to make sure that I don't forget that, I'm going to go in with a little bit of a lighter color so that I know, oh, yeah, that one's the one that's going to be mixing up with that. So, okay, we've got some of this going on, exciting. So this pearl business, right? It's interesting when you start seeing patterns in your own work and you're not fully certain why you have these patterns yet, but you know you have them, and so you just kind of go with it. I am not sure why I have been painting all these sort of pearl-shaped tear things, but it is interesting, and I'm learning from it. Something that I need to make a decision about. Oh, weird. Is that I need to make a decision about where the light source is. So in terms of telling a story in the location, the light source matters. And I want to think about if I was doing this in the idea of sort of underwater or some sort of, let's see, like aquatic theme. I also want to think about where this light is going to come from. So for me right now, I'm thinking I'm probably going to have it in the bottom left corner. I want to make sure I am not blurry. not blurry. Silly camera. Silly camera. Okay. So I want to think about the light. So the light source is going to be in the bottom left-hand corner. So I'm going to probably start indicating some of these highlights as I'm going along so that I can make sure that I keep that in the back of my head. That my location has a light source, and that light source is going to be coming from the bottom left-hand corner of the painting. I grabbed a teeny brush, just so that I can, oh my gosh, so I can get some of these little dot guys around here and just indicate where they are. And I am going to pick up a little white, make them a little bright for that. Oh, still not sharp. Does it need my face? Is that what it wants? It wants me. Sharp, sharp, make me sharp. I don't know if this will work, but if I talk sweetly to it. Hello, camera. You're feeling very out of focus today. You want to focus on me, please? And the painting? I'd really appreciate that. Alright, so looking a little better. Okay, so I'm going to keep going with some of these dot babies. Dot babies. And we remember that small things look like they are back in space, and bigger things look like they're coming forward. Objects in the rear are closer than they appear. Oh, is that what's happening in my shoulder? I will continue to adjust until we can find the right way. Because it's improving, constantly improving. Alright, I think we're good now. 12 minutes left. So, alright, we are going to make these ones look like they're bigger. And I really like this idea of these tendrils capturing them in some way. That's something that I'm painting right now in the arrangement, is that these tendrils are capturing these objects, whether they're tears or pearls, I'm not really sure yet, and I'm pulling them in. Well, now that I am redoing this, and I've got this sense of these going back into space, I think I want to make them have more movement, and I want to make them sort of flow through here. So there's a sense that I have about making repeating shapes. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do another layer around here where they're same size as the ones that were in the first row, but I want them to come forward quicker. So I want them to get bigger sooner. I also make sound effects when I do things, because sound effects, yeah. That's how we roll. We roll with sound effects and silly songs. These are all strategies to improve your mental health. I am not a licensed therapist. So I've now interesting thing happening where these are kind of bumping into these spaces, and I like where that's going. I think what I'm going to start doing now is indicating some of that light that I talked about, where that light source is going to be hitting things. And it will help me also start thinking about this this story that I'm telling and how these flowing shapes are going to interact, and soft circles and very organic. And although I'm using, blues and purples, this is going to be a very comforting set of colors. Multiples definitely can create movement. When you have, especially when they have changing shapes. So what's happening here, it's starting to look almost like a tornado. So you'll start to see this movement around, and I'm probably going to eventually extend these out, but I don't want them to go, well, I got to think about that. That's a decision to make. Do I want them to feel like they're going off, or do I want to keep them in this space? I think with that question posed out loud, I would rather keep them in this space, like they're flowing in and around it. So I will start to move this one back around. Oh, I changed that color. And maybe I'll just start making these into the little dots. And so these are like way off in the distance. Way off in the distance. And they're coming back around. And so you've got this like swirling flow business, which can happen because you've got repetition. If you think about a concentric set of circles, it feels like there's movement when you look at the concentric set of circles. It's actually a composition style, is repeating shapes. So you'll see circle within a circle within a circle as a very common classic painting composition. When you go study fine art or art history, you'll see how many artists use that technique. A lot of other people use rule of thirds. Composition is something that we can talk about another time, but that is totally possible. So repeating patterns can move your eye more than non-repeating ones. Yes, definitely. Think about the difference between like straight lines that are just angular and solid versus like repeating concentric circles. You're going to get one that feels like more movement than the other, especially if they vary in shape. So the fact that these are going from small to large, that's where you get the variation of movement. So if you had lines that were like big, thin, that would also create movement. But the same size, the same shape, the same pattern, if it's not, it doesn't have any contrast, won't create that movement. Bloop, bloop, bloop. But I like this decision of like bringing them back in. I'm bringing sexy back. Alright, I'm gonna change brushes. That one's too itty bitty for what I'm doing right now. I usually work through each kind of pass that I take at the painting. I use a different brush, and I'm slowly going from a larger brush to a smaller brush and getting finer and finer detail as I'm working through it. And I'm just using the brushes to build my painting, just like that foundation idea of I'm going to use a better tool each time to get more and more detail in it. But I don't add eyelashes first. No eyelashes. Not yet. I did draw eyelashes on this guy. That's funny that I'm saying eyelashes so much. It's like eyelash plant. Oh yeah. I don't know what's going on here. I look forward to this. Maybe I'll like midweek live stream on those guys for like 45 minutes straight and nothing else. Would that be interesting? Would you guys want to watch that? I set timers for myself. I use a Pomodoro timer. Make myself work for a certain amount of time and then take a 15-minute break. And I'm also thinking as I'm painting this idea of light in, is that I want to think about where these are sitting in space. Are they coming forward or are they going back? There's a difference in terms of what's going to pick up light depending on how things are moving in that space. And you can think about this in terms of planes, and I mean plane, plane. So this pearl object is on a certain plane, whereas this leaf object is in a plane forward to that pearl object. And so it's going to pick up more light if my light source is down here than that object is. So not only am I thinking in layers of working in the painting, but I'm also thinking in layers of how are these surfaces going to be affected by a light source in these different ways. I am using acrylic, Mary. I don't use oil because I don't have the patience for stuff to dry. I've only dabbled in oil, and that was mostly in college. But I love acrylic because I love how it feels and how much I can get done with it quickly. But also, I love that I can create interesting textures with it, and for me, that's really important. I'm using this sort of scumbling technique where it's running out of paint, so it's getting a little scratchy, but it's showing the canvas surface, and I love that. And I love being able to use that as part of my painting. All right, I am coming into my last few minutes, so I want to give you one last little promo for me. I do have all kinds of fun things for sale if you go to my shop, which has prints from the work that I've created and has been photographed by Stuart Powers, who has artist photo services. He does really high quality digital images of your work so that you can make prints and pillows, and I also have like cutting boards and chairs and all kinds of things. So that is available. If you want to buy an original, that is available also on my website. And I wanted to close out tonight with just this idea that I am so grateful that I have been able to use technology to connect with you tonight, and that you have tuned in and hopefully you've learned something. If you have, let me know. Tell me what you've learned. I have a question. It's, what do you want to learn next? Is there something in the art creativity space that you would find interesting, that you want to just know more about, or something that I've maybe touched on tonight, whether that's, user experience design or growth mindset? I know I've talked about a whole lot of different things. So if you have any suggestions or any comments, please just drop them in here. I am going to be able to record and share this, which is exciting. So please let me know. I'm hoping that everybody can stay safe and stay positive right now. I know that this is a troubling time. I've had my serious ups and downs this last week, but I think that this is the type of thing that helps us stay safe and stay sane by having happy mental health and happy habits. So I am expressing gratitude because that's an important part of that. So I hope you can all have a wonderful, wonderful night. And again, leave me a comment of what you'd like to learn next, or something you'd like me to talk about, or just give me feedback. Thank you, Abby, for saying I'm cute. I appreciate it. I think I'm certainly more cute with bunny hood on, maybe. Thank you all again, and this will be Kristen signing off. I'll be back next week. I'm going to be doing this through the end of this month, so there's, I think, 2 more sessions. And after that, we'll see if this is something that has legs, so to speak. I will be doing something more with this, but I would love to be able to continue to share these ideas with you. So, mwah! Thank you, and have a fantastic night.